I try really hard to stay out of the drama on YouTube and social media in general, but every now and then I will have a video that comes across my feed that is so incompetent by a creator who has so many subscribers that it just has to be addressed. Look, if you are a creator in the lawn care community on YouTube, you have a responsibility to your followers to not be incompetent. I recently watched a video about a guy who was saying how he 1099s his employees instead of W-2ing. And the reason he 1099s his employees instead of W-2ing is because he has a high turnover rate. And he does not want to deal with the expenses of payroll taxes with W-2. He doesn't have to want to deal with the paperwork associated with W-2ing employees. Guys, let me spell this out for you. You don't get to decide if you're going to 1099 an employee or you're going to W-2 them. The IRS has already decided for you with a list of guidelines at irs.gov. Let me save you a lot of time on this. If they show up when you tell them to, they're an employee that should be W-2'd. All right? If they show up and use your equipment, they are an employee that should be W-2'd. If they show up and they do not have their own business license, they are an employee and should be W-2'd. Guys, it's not, you don't have the option of deciding, well, after they've been with me for a while and they're a valuable employee, then I will put them on payroll and pay my portion of the employee's payroll taxes. You don't get to decide that, all right? That's not an option for us, all right? The IRS has already said what we are supposed to do. Here's what's going to happen, okay? The IRS at some point will audit this business, all right? They will come in and they will look at this business and they'll say, my God, how long have you been 1099ing these people? Oh, I've done it for the last 5 or 6 years. The IRS will say, here is payroll taxes due for the last 5 years on every single one of those 1099s you sent out. By the way, here's penalties and fees associated with that. By the way, here's interest associated with all that. It will put you out of business. And you cannot say to the online community in YouTube and tell them, I never had any problem with it. It's because you haven't been audited yet, okay? Let's say the IRS doesn't audit you, all right? Let's say they give you several more years. At some point, your business is going to get an audit. But let's just say you get to kick the can down the road a little further, okay? Here's what happens. You put that crap out on YouTube, and an angry competitor of yours who you've been, I don't know, maybe you've been in the same neighborhoods that they do, they see that video, they just get that ball rolling like that. Pick up the phone, call the IRS, opens up a case that has to be closed, so the IRS has to look into it, and guess what? IRS is knocking at your door a couple months later, and they are going to put you out of business. Guys, if you are an employee, okay, and you're not a business owner, let's say you're an employee, you're working for a lawn care company, all right, and your employer is trying to 1099 you, let me tell you how that works. As an employee, as an employer, it is always a good deal for us, all right? We get to write off the entire amount of that labor cost, of that subcontractor cost, but we don't have to incur any of the payroll processing fees or any of the payroll taxes associated with putting you on the books, okay? It is always a good deal for us. 99% of the time, it's a bad deal for you because we're not withholding any of your payroll taxes. Come tax time, you're going to be stuck with a major tax bill because none of your taxes have been withheld by me, the employee, okay? Or the employer, all right? Furthermore, whenever you are an employee of mine, what happens is half of the payroll taxes, half of your Social Security is paid by the employer, and the other half is paid by you. About 7.5%, 7.5%. You know, we each pay equal on your Social Security. But when you're a 1099, you're responsible for paying the entire 15.3%, all right? So you have to pay more in taxes with the added screw up of not having taxes withheld from your check. Guys, Nobody saves taxes. That is an employee. You don't set aside money for taxes. And certainly whenever it comes tax time and your Jackson Hewitt person ends up telling you that you owe $8,000 in taxes, like, guys, you cannot put advice out on YouTube, all right? That is incompetent, that is stupid, that is silly, all right? Because people follow and they look at these people for advice, and I cannot fathom that you would put out advice like that. I just can't do it, because there's going to come a time when you are going to have to pay the piper. If you are currently 1099 your employees, and you know that you should be W-2ing them, here's what you do. You put every one of them on payroll right now, and you pray to God that you don't get audited. That's what you do. If you are looking at starting a business, let me spell this out for you. If you bring on an employee, they're W-2'd. If you are an employee, let me spell this out for you. If your employer is trying to 1099 you, and you know you should be W-2'd and having taxes withheld, your employer is screwing around because it's a good deal for him and it's a bad deal for you. You need to call them out on it. So again, I will close by saying, if you are going to put out information in the lawn care community on YouTube, you have a responsibility as a creator to not be incompetent.